What if I told you that in the year 2000, one of the largest entertainment companies in the world was offered the deal of a lifetime? The chance to buy a small, struggling startup for just $50 million. The giant company laughed them out of the room. That giant was Blockbuster. The startup was Netflix. And that single decision wasn't just a mistake. It was a multi-billion-dollar act of self-destruction that has become one of the most studied business failures in modern history. But the reason why they said no is not what you think. It wasn't arrogance. It was logic. Deadly, fatal logic. In the late 1990s, Blockbuster was an absolute titan. With over 9,000 stores worldwide and more than 60,000 employees, it was the undisputed king of home video. The blue and yellow ticket stub was an icon, a staple of Friday nights for millions. They had built an empire on a simple, profitable model: rent a movie, return it on time. If you didn't, you paid. Meanwhile, Netflix was a tiny, bleeding-edge .com startup with a radical idea. No stores. No shelves. Just a website, a massive inventory of DVDs, and the United States Postal Service. Their model was also simple: pay a flat monthly fee, get DVDs delivered to your door, and keep them as long as you want. No late fees. Ever. In 2000, Netflix was hemorrhaging cash and on the verge of failure. In a last-ditch effort, founders Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph flew to Dallas to meet with Blockbuster's CEO, John Antioco. Their pitch was a partnership. Netflix would become the online arm of Blockbuster, effectively running Blockbuster.com. In exchange, Blockbuster would promote the online service in its thousands of stores. The price for this acquisition? $50 million. Today, Netflix is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, while only one Blockbuster store remains on Earth. So what really happened in that meeting? Why did a company with all the resources in the world look at the future and decide to pass? That's the question we're answering today. To understand Blockbuster's decision, we have to understand the world they dominated, and the hidden addiction that was secretly fueling their profits. It's difficult to overstate how dominant Blockbuster was. They weren't just a company, they were a cultural institution. Their entire business was a finely tuned machine, optimized for a physical world. Their strategy rested on three pillars. First, store footprint. Blockbuster's locations were everywhere. They were prime real estate, engineered for high foot traffic. The goal was to make renting a movie as convenient as picking up a gallon of milk. Second, new releases. The front of every Blockbuster store was a testament to Hollywood's latest hits. They bought tens of thousands of copies of new blockbusters, knowing that was what drew people in. The back catalog was less important. And third, the most critical pillar, late fees. To the customer, a late fee was a penalty, an annoyance. But to Blockbuster's executives and shareholders, it was a gold mine. In the year 2000, Blockbuster generated over $800 million from late fees alone. This accounted for roughly 16% of their total revenue. But here's the crucial part: that revenue was almost pure profit. The cost of the tape or DVD was already paid for. Late fees were the engine of profitability that Wall Street had come to expect. This wasn't a side business, it was central to their financial model. Any decision that threatened the late fee engine was a non-starter. When Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph walked into Blockbuster's headquarters, they weren't just proposing a business deal. They were unknowingly presenting a direct threat to that profit engine. The Netflix model was built on the exact opposite principle. The subscription fee created a predictable, recurring revenue stream. But the real marketing genius was the core promise: no late fees. It was a direct attack on the single biggest pain point of the video rental experience. At the Dallas meeting, Hastings and Randolph laid out their vision. Blockbuster would acquire them, and they would build an online, subscription-based service for the rental giant. Blockbuster's powerful brand and massive store footprint would be used to market this new way of renting movies. It was a hybrid click-and-mortar strategy. The Blockbuster executives listened. And according to Mark Randolph's account, they struggled to keep a straight face. One senior executive allegedly asked, "If we were to buy you, what would we be getting?" Randolph replied, "The business." The meeting ended quickly after that. Blockbuster wasn't interested. They saw Netflix not as an opportunity, but as a tiny, unprofitable niche business that didn't understand how the rental industry actually worked. $50 million seemed like a laughable price for a company that was losing money hand over fist. But the rejection wasn't just about the money. Blockbuster said no because their entire organization was structured to reject an idea like Netflix. Think about it from their perspective. Their success was measured by metrics like same-store sales, revenue per square foot, and inventory turnover. Every manager, every executive, and every franchisee was incentivized to maximize the profitability of their physical stores. An online subscription service had no physical stores. It had no late fees. It didn't fit into any of their established models for success. Embracing Netflix would mean telling their store managers that a core part of their business, late fees, was now the enemy. It would mean telling their franchisees that the parent company was now competing directly with them through the mail. It would require cannibalizing their most profitable revenue stream in favor of a new, unproven model with razor-thin margins. This is a classic example of what's known as the innovator's dilemma, a concept coined by Harvard professor Clayton Christensen. Successful, well-managed companies often fail because the very processes and values that made them successful also prevent them from adopting new, disruptive technologies. Blockbuster wasn't being stupid. They were being a good, rational, well-run company. And that's what doomed them. After the rejection, Netflix scraped by, survived the dot-com bust, and went public in 2002. They grew slowly but steadily, refining their model. Blockbuster, meanwhile, eventually realized the threat. In 2004, under CEO John Antioco, they finally launched their own competitor, Blockbuster Online. And shockingly, it was actually a good service. It was competitive with Netflix and even offered in-store exchanges for online rentals. Antioco was willing to sacrifice the sacred late fees to compete. He poured hundreds of millions into the service, and it started gaining traction. But the company's old guard and its investors fought him at every turn. Powerful franchisees revolted against the new model. And most famously, activist investor Carl Icahn, who had gained a seat on the board, saw the massive spending on the online service as a waste of money. He believed Blockbuster should focus on maximizing profits from its existing stores. A bitter boardroom battle ensued. In 2007, John Antioco was pushed out. The company's new leadership immediately scaled back the investment in Blockbuster Online and raised its price, making it less competitive. They went back to focusing on their stores, squeezing the last drops of profit from a dying model. Just 3 years later, in 2010, Blockbuster declared bankruptcy. And that's the real secret. The fatal decision wasn't just that one moment in a Dallas conference room in the year 2000. That was just a symptom of a much deeper disease. Blockbuster's failure was a failure of imagination. They saw themselves as being in the business of renting DVDs from physical stores. They were not. They were in the home entertainment business. Their true competitor wasn't just other rental stores, it was anything that kept people on their couches at night. Netflix understood this. They knew the business wasn't about the plastic disc. It was about access and convenience. The DVD buy-mail model was just the first step. It was a Trojan horse for their ultimate vision, streaming. So the real, fatal decision Blockbuster made was to protect its existing, profitable business model at all costs. They rejected Netflix not because they thought it was a bad idea, but because it was a good idea that fundamentally threatened their identity, their infrastructure, and their addiction to the easy money of late fees. They chose to optimize the present instead of building the future. The Blockbuster story is now a cautionary tale taught in every business school. It is the ultimate example of a market leader being disrupted by a smaller, more nimble innovator. The lesson is powerful and universal. Success can create blind spots. The systems and metrics that make a company profitable can also make it rigid and incapable of change. The most dangerous phrase in business is not "that's a bad idea." It's "that's not how we do things here." True strategic vision requires a willingness to destroy your own business before someone else does. It demands that you constantly ask not just "what is profitable now," but "what will my customer need next?" Blockbuster failed to ask that question. And in the end, it cost them everything. If you learned something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?